One of the themes that we talk about a lot on the Holy Post is what does it mean to be a faithful Christian in a pluralistic culture? And to do that without resorting to fear and anger, which is what a lot of Christian voices in the media seem to do these days. How do we, as a pluralistic culture, where we do have profound disagreements perhaps around faith commitments, around the identity of Jesus or which scriptures are most authoritative, whatever, how do we find the ability to not just lock arms with our sisters and brothers in our own faith or denomination or church, but beyond those walls with people who we may fundamentally disagree with on various points? How do we find the ability to lock arms with each other across those divisions to share in the work that you think we need to do together, rather than just yell at each other or try to convert one another every other minute?
If there's an earthquake or there's a hurricane in New Orleans, people jump in, they roll up their sleeves, and they're saving people and they're helping people. And you can have Muslims doing it, and you can have Buddhists doing it, and Christians doing it. And no one's trying to convert each other. They're just in the boats and getting sleeping bags and making sure people have fresh water, and they're working. And so we have to reconceive what's happening in contemporary society as if it's like Katrina, the mental health crisis, the climate crisis, the racial and racism crisis that's going on with this great kind of racist divide in our country, income inequality. This is why I set them up as pandemics in the beginning of the book, that the stakes are really high. Find a common point of unity of something you can all work on and just focus on that, and then don't focus on the differences so much.
I agree in principle wholeheartedly with you, Rainn. So let me rain on your parade for a second, though. We just had a literal pandemic. We had what is essentially a natural disaster sweep across the world and the United States. I thought originally when COVID was emerging that maybe this would help heal some of the divides. Maybe it would help us come together across our divisions to combat a common foe. And yet it seemed to do the opposite. It ripped us further apart. And I know that's part of what you wrote the book to try to heal. This whole idea of a soul boom is to not make that happen in the future. But what do you think then are the things we need to intentionally dismantle that are fighting against that kind of cooperative, pluralistic setting?
I think we need to dismantle partisan politics. And it's easier said than done, because that was really the culprit. You know, everything becomes politicized. So vaccines become politicized, government overreach becomes politicized, the role of government becomes politicized. And, you know, Americans are so entrenched in this partisan battle where people on the left are like, oh, if we could only have another Obama, and if we could only have, 12 civil, if we could end gerrymandering, and if we could have 12 Supreme Court justices, then everything would be great, and on the political right, it's like, oh, if we only had another Reagan or another Trump, then everything would be great. And if we could only if we could only win Congress and then repeal Obamacare, then everything would be great. And, people are in this mode of like, if we could only just get a little bit more power on our side, then we would fix things and they would be great. But we've been doing that for 100+ years and it hasn't been working, and no one is challenging the system itself. So the American political system itself, which is what I get into in the tail end of the book, is about systemic change and really like revitalizing and ripping apart and dismantling these systems that are based on kind of the worst of humanity. And we need to start really looking at this partisan system as it's corrupt, it's broken, and it feeds off of contempt, aggression, power-seeking, one-upsmanship, backstabbing, to the victor go the spoils. Easier said than done, I know, but we're not having that conversation at all. The conversation is purely about left versus right, as opposed to, hey, wait a minute, we're deadlocked in a unsustainable system.
I concur. Again, topics we talk about regularly on the show. Let me ask you this. This will be my last question. Speaking to an audience, although it's a diverse audience, most of our audience are going to identify as Christian. What would you say to Christians today in America? I mean, you have a lot in this book with deep admiration for the Christian faith, and especially the early centuries of the church and the remarkable witness that it was. What message do you have for those who identify as Christians that are listening to this, as a fellow American concerned about what's going on in our country, who's not in the Christian community directly? What do you say to those who are?
You know, I have so much to say here. Recently, I did a very famous tweet about a TV show where there was The Last of Us, which had a character that was a Christian minister that began the episode. And in a second and a half, I was like, he was preaching to his congregation in this post-apocalyptic world. And I was like, oh, he's going to be evil. Because it's Hollywood and he's a Christian. So, and not only was he evil, he was a pedophile and a cannibal. He was like as evil as you could get. And to me, that was just stupid and lazy screenwriting. Just like, we need an evil guy. Oh, we'll just make him a pastor. And then he turns out to be a hypocrite who is a pedophile rapist, etc. And it was amazing the number of Christian friends in Hollywood I heard from who didn't speak up about it. And we're thanking the Baha'i for defending the Christians. Yeah. You're welcome, Christianity. You're welcome,
We needed
Jesus.
you, Rainn. Thank you.
No, but the point that I'm making is, number one, I think be unapologetic about your faith, because Jesus Christ, his mission, the red letter Bible that we Baha'is read, his ministry are something to be so proud of and to emulate. Faith without works is dead, says Peter. And it all comes down to love. It comes down to radical compassion and love. So set aside all the intellectual bickering and the back and forth and the politics and the up and down, and harness that power of love that Jesus had, that the apostles had, that the great saints had. That is, Baha'u'llah says, let your heart burn in loving kindness for those who cross your path. Think about, like, let your heart burn in loving kindness for everyone who crosses your path. Like, that's something we can all do, is just maximize our heart organ, our heart laser beam, and just spread that unapologetically. I love Jesus. I love people. I want to serve them. I'm going to open my heart. I'm going to make it huge. I'm going to heal, and I'm going to forgive, and I'm going to create bonds of unity and community. Everyone can do that. And again, easier said than done. And how best to put that into practice? Well, that's for you to decide, but that's something we can all do together, arm in arm.
Well, that's a good word. And a reminder that if we Christians would simply be more committed to following what we preach, I think it would have a transformative effect on so much of our culture and our world. So thank you for that reminder. And thank you for your time. Thank you for the book. Really grateful that you've been with us and that you've put this out there and you're having these conversations all over the media and the culture right now. It's fantastic.
You and I can work together on something, Skye. I would love to, do a panel or a discussion or a service project. So please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll put my email here in the chat, and let's do something, man. Let's mix some up and spread some giant faith-based love actions across the planet.
I'm for it. I'm out in LA from time to time, and we have a lot of Holy Post listeners out there, so maybe we can pull something off. It'd be fun.
I love it.